Absolutely don't skip ahead, because in just a few seconds, you'll hear a story that might make you see life through a whole new lens. Before we begin, if you love inspiring stories filled with emotions and faith in the goodness of humanity, don't forget to subscribe to the Heart Glow channel. Every week, we'll bring you a new story, gently touching your heart in the most tender way. Thank you for being part of Heart Glow, New York. In the midst of a winter so cold it cuts through your skin, people rush past the glowing streets, hands wrapped around hot coffee, ears glued to their phones, and hearts quietly still. But in a corner of Brooklyn Park, where the light never quite reaches, a young girl is silently collecting empty bottles. Her name is Emily. 22 years old. Homeless. No family, but she has a heart that the whole world is about to see, a lottery ticket. A small act. A miracle that isn't made of money, and a meeting that might just make you believe. Kindness doesn't need to win the lottery to change a life. New York never sleeps, but it also never waits for anyone. In the city of big dreams, there are people slipping through the cracks, away from all the lights. Emily is one of them. The 22-year-old girl with tangled brown hair and eyes as gray as the January fog. She used to be an outstanding student at a public school in Queens, always called the bright spark of the class by her teachers. When she was younger, Emily had it all: parents who worked hard, not rich but getting by, and most importantly, they loved her deeply. She dreamed of becoming a writer, and every night, under the glow of a bedside lamp, she wrote fairy tales in her soft, blue-covered notebook. But fate doesn't warn us about the storms. When Emily was 14, her mother passed away from a terminal illness. Her father, once quiet but strong, couldn't bear the loss. He turned to alcohol, lost his job, and a year later, he left without saying goodbye. Emily became an orphan, sent into foster care. She moved from one family to another, never finding a place to call home. Yet, she kept up her studies. She believed that if she excelled in school, she could rewrite her life. But in her senior year of high school, she had to drop out to take care of her sick foster mother. When she passed away, Emily was once again cast out, but this time, there was no safety net, no home, no diploma, no family. Emily didn't fall into crime. She chose to survive, with survival instincts and a heart that never stopped hoping. It all started on a cold night in Brooklyn Park. Dawn in Brooklyn never shows mercy to those sleeping on park benches. The sound of buses honking, the screech of trains crossing the Manhattan Bridge, and the chatter of early risers, all blur into an incessant noise. Emily woke up with the fog, her thin hoodie barely enough to shield her from the cold wind. She carefully tucked her little green notebook into the inner pocket of her jacket, like it was the last precious thing she had. Her day began by walking around the local market streets. Holding a large plastic bag, stooping to pick up every plastic bottle she could find, passers-by brushed past her, rarely looking at her for more than 3 seconds. A few young people sneaked photos, whispered something, and laughed. Emily didn't mind. She was used to being invisible in this city. Every time she filled a bag with bottles, she took it to a recycling point, 5 cents per bottle. On a lucky day, she might make $6 to $8. By noon, she would stop by a small charity corner on Montrose Street. There, they handed out stale bread and hot soup to the homeless. The bread was dry, the soup thin, but to her, it was a feast. She never fought for food. And if there was any left over, she always gave it to someone older than herself. Afterward, Emily would often sit on the steps behind the public library, where there was free Wi-Fi. She didn't have a phone, but she had an old fountain pen and a thin, yellowing notebook. In it, she wrote, not about her current life, but about dreams, fairy tales of a girl who turned tears into magic, of a talking cat, of a city that could lull the poor to sleep, she wrote with determination, as if those words would save her from the harshness of reality. Every page was a sigh, but also a spark, and she never stopped writing, because Emily believed that no matter how many times life tore her apart, dreams, if carefully nurtured, could take flight again, when night fell. Brooklyn Park transformed into something else. The laughter of children gave way to the sound of wind whistling through the bare trees. The pale yellow streetlights cast a dim glow over the bodies curled up in sleeping bags. In a corner of the park, near the old bench Emily had chosen as her home, there was an older man, silver-haired with trembling hands, Mr. Harold. They didn't speak in the first days. They were simply two people quietly coexisting in a city that was too busy to notice them. But one night, when the cold pierced like needles, Emily saw Mr. Harold leaning against the tree, coughing incessantly. She walked over, pulled half a piece of bread from her bag, her only dinner. "Here, eat this. I have some soup left." He looked at her, his eyes cloudy but warm. "You should keep it. You're young." Emily shook her head. "You need to make it through the night." From that day on, they shared everything they had. No matter how little it was, Emily always saved something for Mr. Harold, a piece of bread, a sip of warm water, a thin blanket she found. She called him Grandpa Harold, a sweet habit. He told stories, and she listened. She wrote, and he smiled. They say homeless people don't trust anyone. But between Emily and Mr. Harold, there was an invisible thread of pure kindness. Neither of them had anything, yet they still gave each other beautiful things. Emily had never thought kindness was a luxury. She believed that in a cold world, sometimes just one small warm gesture could stop someone from falling, and those days of sharing food with Mr. Harold made her heart stronger than even the wealthiest people in the city. It was a cold, windy Friday afternoon. Emily had just left the bottle return station, her pockets holding only a little over $3. She decided not to go to the soup kitchen that day, leaving a meal for someone else, and wandered through a small square near the subway station. People rushed past each other like the wind. Everyone had somewhere to go, something to do, and someone to think about, but Emily only had herself. She sat on the old stone steps, opened her notebook, and wrote a new story, about a girl who found a magic ticket leading to a dream castle. As she closed the notebook, a woman approached. She wore a thick red coat, her face bright, her eyes kind as though she came from somewhere different than the rest of the city. "Hi there," the woman said, her voice as soft as silk. "Are you okay?" Emily flinched, nodding awkwardly. The woman didn't ask anything else. She simply reached into her bag, pulled out a lottery ticket, and placed it in Emily's hand. "I just bought this," she said, "but I think you should keep it. I hope luck comes your way." Without waiting for a response, the woman smiled and melted into the crowd like a gentle breeze. Emily looked at the ticket in her hand, the smudged numbers, still smelling faintly of fresh paper. She had never bought a lottery ticket. It was a luxury, a game of hope that the poor could never dare to dream of. She wasn't sure if it was a gift of value, or just a spontaneous act from someone, but somehow, her heart warmed. Not because of the lottery ticket, but because, for the first time in years, someone had really seen her, not a homeless person, not a poor soul, but a human being. And sometimes, just one glance like that can reignite a flame in someone whose spirit seemed to have long burned out. That night, the wind sliced through the air. The Brooklyn sky had no stars, only the yellowish light filtering through the bare tree branches. Emily sat near a small fire they had built with scraps of wood, wrapping an old scarf tightly around her neck. Mr. Harold sat in silence for a long time, his eyes gazing far away as if trying to find an image buried deep by time. "Emily," he called softly. his voice like a whisper of wind. Have you ever lived in a real home? She nodded, then shook her head. I did, when I was little. Then Mom passed, and Dad left. He nodded, his gaze softening, then he began to tell his story. I once had a small bookstore in Queens. Not big, but enough to live on. Every morning, my wife and I would make coffee, turn on the lights, and open the doors for the kids to come read for free. He stopped, his trembling hands gripping his knees tightly. My wife's name was Martha. Red hair, always laughing. She was the sunshine in my life. Then one day, Martha was diagnosed with cancer. They sold everything, the books, the shop, even the old car. But she still passed away. When she died, everything fell apart, he said, his voice choking. Emily didn't say anything, but she understood. Loss is a language that doesn't need translation. I had everything. Then I had nothing. Since then, I've just drifted like a shadow. A long silence enveloped them. Only the crackling fire and the faint sounds of their breathing filled the night. But you know, he said, looking at her. Watching you write every day, it's like I'm seeing myself again. The days when there was still hope. Emily gripped her notebook tightly, as if afraid to lose it. I don't know what's ahead, she said, but I want to believe that if I keep writing, one day, someone will read it. Mr. Harold smiled softly. You're the last good thing I've met. Don't let the world snuff out the flame inside you, Emily. And in that cold, bitter night, two broken souls found each other through the patches of memory sewn together by kindness. The next morning, the snow fell lightly. The concrete yard in the park was covered with tiny white flakes like glitter. Emily sat on the stone bench, holding the crumpled lottery ticket in her hand, her gaze deep in thought. It was the day the results were announced. The jackpot was $35 million. People were buzzing. All talking about the numbers, the dream of a new life with just one piece of paper. But Emily was different. She didn't see the ticket in her hand as a chance to get rich. It was a choice. That afternoon, she found Mr. Harold shivering beneath a tree, his thin coat soaked through. She knelt before him, holding out the ticket. Mr. Harold. He looked up, tired eyes. What is it, dear? I want you to keep this. He looked at the ticket, bewildered. A lottery ticket? No, no. This is your chance, Emily. She shook her head, determined. No. I believe miracles should come to those who deserve them. I'm still young. I have time. But you've waited too long. You need this miracle more than I do. His voice caught, and he didn't know what to say. For me, just being able to write is a miracle already. But you need a place to call home. A warm meal. A cup of tea. And to live once more like a human. No one else was around to witness this. No cameras. No crowd, just two people, a girl with a heart bigger than the city, and an old man whose memories were running out. Mr. Harold clutched the ticket in his hand, tears falling uncontrollably. Thank you, Emily. Not for the ticket. But because, you believe I deserve something good. And in that moment, as the snow fell softly around them, one small act began to write the biggest story of Emily's life. The story that, just days later, all of America would come to know. That day, after Emily had given her lottery ticket to Mr. Harold, he couldn't stop thinking about her gesture. He sat there, staring at the ticket in his hand, feeling as though a miracle had just occurred. He had never imagined that a homeless girl, living in poverty, would give away such a life-changing opportunity. He had lived through hardships himself, but he never expected to receive anything good from people like Emily. It was just a lottery ticket, but her act of sharing had lit up his heart. He felt as though he had been given new strength, a renewed faith in life. He recalled the tough days, the years when he had nothing but a small used bookstore and his beloved wife. But now, Emily had changed everything. It was her gaze, her sacrifice, that made him realize that sometimes, the best things come from people who have nothing at all. He looked at the ticket and thought to himself, if it weren't for Emily, he might never have experienced this feeling of being loved, of being trusted. Even though he was old and broken down, Mr. Harold cried. Not out of pity, but from a deep sense of gratitude. Thank you, Emily. Thank you for the human connection in a world full of coldness and survival. Thank you for not seeing him as invisible, but as a real person. And when he saw Emily's smile before she left, he understood that, even if the ticket didn't win, this old man had found an invaluable treasure, faith in kindness and love between people. That girl, though poor, was the richest person he had ever met. Meanwhile, as this emotional moment between Emily and Mr. Harold was unfolding, a young tourist walking through the park happened to witness the entire scene. The young man, with his phone in hand, couldn't tear his eyes away from the sight of the two standing there. Though he was just a passerby, he felt like he had witnessed something extraordinary. He knew right away that this moment would touch many hearts. So, he quietly recorded the whole video, from the moment Emily handed Mr. Harold the lottery ticket, to when they sat down together, sharing kind words and a rare smile in the midst of homelessness. In a harsh city, he filmed Emily's smile, her eyes full of warmth and hope. As she gave Mr. Harold the opportunity that he might never have dreamed of. The young tourist paused for a moment, unable to overlook the scene, knowing that something truly special was unfolding. This video would become something big, an important message about compassion and sacrifice, things that aren't always given attention in this world. He felt lucky to have witnessed this moment. And when the video ended, he decided to share it on social media, not for fame, but because he felt it was too beautiful and meaningful to not share with the world. The next day, when the lottery results were announced on TV, Emily had no intention of checking the ticket she had given to Mr. Harold. She still believed that her action had been right, no matter the outcome. But when Mr. Harold called her, his voice sounded a little strange. Emily. The ticket didn't win. Emily could hear the disappointment in his voice, but she wasn't surprised. She knew she couldn't change the luck of a lottery ticket, but what mattered was what she had done. She had given an opportunity, and whether it brought wealth or not, at least she had done the right thing. I'm okay, Mr. Harold. Sometimes, miracles aren't about money. Miracles are about trust. Mr. Harold didn't say anything, just sighed. But Emily, he said, his voice softer now, the ticket didn't win money, but it won something, trust. When Emily heard those words, it felt as though she had received a gift more precious than $1 million. It was trust in good things, in kindness between people that the world often forgets. Although the lottery ticket didn't win, Mr. Harold felt that he had received an invaluable gift. He choked up, thanking Emily with tears in his eyes. You don't know, this ticket wasn't just an opportunity for me. It was your trust. He didn't need money or prizes. What he needed was the sacrifice, the care that Emily had given him. That was something he never thought he would receive. Especially after life had knocked him down so many times, the ticket didn't win money, but it won trust. It won the love of a young girl like you. And that's a miracle. He patted Emily on the shoulder, his eyes sparkling like a faint star in the dark night. Emily smiled and nodded. She didn't need any more words, because she knew that what she had done wasn't for fame or attention. it was for the belief in good things, even if the world was harsh. Soon after, the video of Emily handing the lottery ticket to Mr. Harold began to spread on social media. The tourist had shared the video on TikTok and YouTube, and within hours, it had millions of views. People were moved by the young girl's act of kindness. The comments flooded in, mostly expressing admiration for Emily. Who is this girl? She deserves all the good things. This is the real angel, not those calling for attention on social media. Millions of people from all around the world were touched by the story, and the biggest question on everyone's mind was, who is this girl? The story of a poor girl giving away a life-changing opportunity to someone else had caught the attention of the world. And even though the ticket didn't win, it brought the kind of attention Emily never dreamed of. The video had touched millions of hearts, and people began searching for Emily, not only for her story, but for the message of kindness, sharing, and love in a society that often overlooks these qualities. Soon, television stations and newspapers started to take notice of Emily's story. They called her the Angel of Brooklyn, the nameless angel in the cold city. Morning news programs and early TV shows began to cover Emily, telling the emotional story between her and Mr. Harold, a homeless girl, poor but willing to share the opportunity to change her life with someone else. She is a true model of compassion. Within just a few days, Emily became a name everyone was talking about across all media outlets. Everyone wanted to know who she was and learn more about her story. Although she never sought attention, Emily suddenly found herself embraced by millions across the country. Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue with the program, we would love for you to leave a comment and share your thoughts down below. If you find the show meaningful, don't hesitate to share it to support the channel and spread the value to those around you. Wishing you all a truly meaningful listening experience. Nathan Cole is a name everyone in the tech industry knows. With an empire at his fingertips, he is a billionaire, the founder of one of Manhattan's most pioneering tech companies. His home is a towering glass building, sitting in the heart of the city, with a panoramic view of the bustling streets below. Every day, Nathan wakes up in his luxurious room, starting his day with numbers, financial reports, and important calls. He lives in a world of wealth, power, and technology. Yet, despite having everything money can buy, Nathan feels lonely. Long evenings spent alone, meals by himself, and conversations with numbers instead of people. Though surrounded by thousands of employees and millions of admirers, Nathan feels like an outsider, like no one truly understands him. His wealth hasn't brought him happiness, it's only left him with an empty life. Moreover, Nathan begins to doubt the goodness of people. In a world of endless deals and fierce competition in the tech industry, he sees very little action that truly comes from the heart. He believes everything has a price in this world, and kindness is no exception. The world Nathan lives in is a place of cold-hearted people, where decisions are made based on benefit, not emotion, and in that world, Nathan doesn't believe genuinely kind people exist, until one video appeared that changed everything in his mind. One morning, just like any other, Nathan sat in his office on the top floor of the glass building. Before him sat a cup of black coffee and a plate of toast, while his computer screen glowed with financial reports that needed his attention. But that day, something changed. As he scrolled through social media news, his eyes stopped when he saw a video. The title of the video was, "Homeless Girl Gives Lottery Ticket to Someone Else." Intrigued, Nathan clicked on the video and was immediately captivated. In the video, he saw a young girl with a face that looked impoverished but eyes full of compassion. This girl was none other than Emily. She stood in Brooklyn Park, handing a lottery ticket to a homeless man, Mr. Harold. And what stood out most was that the girl didn't just hand him the ticket. She said heartfelt words from the bottom of her heart. "I think you need that miracle more than I do." Nathan stared at the screen, his heart suddenly quiet. He felt something very special, unlike anything he'd ever experienced in his wealthy life. He wondered, why would a poor young girl do that? Why didn't she keep her chance for herself and instead chose to share it with someone else? In that moment, Nathan stopped everything. He couldn't tear his eyes away from the screen. This strange feeling was unlike anything he had ever felt before. In Emily's eyes, he saw sincerity and kindness he had never encountered in anyone. That brief video, just a few minutes long, had completely changed everything in his mind. A big question arose in Nathan's head: how could someone like this girl exist in the skeptical world I live in? Nathan sat there, silently staring at the screen, but his mind was elsewhere, back in his past. Memories of his impoverished childhood in Chicago came flooding back like a wave. Back then, his family lived in a poor neighborhood, where everyone struggled to make a living. Meager meals, long nights without electricity, and times when he stayed up late doing homework because he couldn't afford books. During those years, Nathan witnessed his parents' suffering and the constant arguments about money and their life in poverty. He remembered that back then, he too dreamt of a different life, a life that wasn't about fighting for every penny, a life without scarcity. He remembered telling himself he would succeed so he wouldn't have to live in poverty anymore. But in his climb to success, he lost something important: his belief in the goodness of people. Now, when he saw Emily, a girl with nothing, yet willing to give, Nathan felt like he was looking at a part of himself from the past. A part that he had lost, a part that couldn't be bought with money. In that moment, Nathan felt something stir within his soul. Was this the thing he needed to find again? Was the belief in the goodness of people still alive? Unable to stop himself, Nathan decided to take action. He knew he had to meet this girl. Nathan immediately called his assistant, asking her to do whatever it took to identify Emily. "I want to meet her. The girl in that video. I don't know why, but I feel she can teach me something I've never learned." Nathan's assistant, who was always quick and efficient, immediately got to work. She tracked down information from social media videos, local news outlets, and online communities. Though it wasn't easy, within a few hours, Nathan's assistant had found the name of the girl and basic details about her life. Her name is Emily. She's a homeless girl from Brooklyn. She regularly helps others in the area and always keeps a notebook where she writes down her dreams. When Nathan heard this information, he felt a special connection. This girl, with all her simplicity but depth, had changed his perspective on life. He promised himself, "I have to meet her, I have to thank her," and so the decision was made. Nathan wanted to meet Emily, not only to learn about her but to learn from her. He wanted to know what was in her heart that allowed her to give without expecting anything in return. After deciding to meet Emily, the search for her became a sensation. News outlets and TV stations began covering the journey to find Angel Emily. Local news, as well as major papers like the New York Times, started reporting about the girl in the video. Social media joined in the hunt. Thousands of people on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok shared Emily's story and her incredible actions. The whole of New York was buzzing with the question, "Who is this girl?" Local residents of Brooklyn, where Emily lived, started recognizing her. Stories about the homeless girl who had helped so many others were shared everywhere. With support from the media and the community, the search became even more intense. Nathan could feel the excitement in the air, Everyone wanted to know who Emily was and why she would do something like this when she had nothing herself. Finally, after days of searching, the volunteer group found where Emily was staying. One morning, as the sun rose, they found her in a small park in Brooklyn, helping Mr. Harold pick up litter from the ground. That scene touched Nathan's heart even more. Emily, in her old clothes and worn-out shoes, stood there patiently helping her elderly friend. She had no idea her life had become an inspiration to millions. As the volunteers got closer, Emily looked up and noticed a group of people searching for her. One of them approached her with a smile and said, "We're looking for you, Emily. Someone wants to meet you." And so, the story continued. The poor girl, still living in her simple life, was about to meet the man who had decided to change her life, a tech billionaire from Manhattan. That day, New York City was shrouded in a light drizzle. The cold raindrops fell from the gray sky, cloaking everything in a misty, quiet veil. While cars rushed by, Nathan Cole, the famous tech billionaire, walked alone on the sidewalk, with no driver or bodyguard as usual. Today, he had chosen to come here on his own, for only then could he feel what he had been searching for all these years. The rain didn't seem to bother him. His thick coat could not shield the coldness in his eyes. This wasn't his first time in Brooklyn, but today everything felt different. He wasn't looking for skyscrapers or the neon lights of Manhattan. He was searching for a person, someone who had taught him things he had never known before about love and sacrifice. Everything had changed. He was no longer the billionaire surrounded by protection. He was just a middle-aged man, lost and full of regret in a city filled with lights. When Emily saw Nathan enter the park, she didn't recognize him. She was sitting alone on a bench, holding half a piece of stale bread, her eyes filled with a quiet sadness as she gazed into the hazy city space. People like her, poor and forgotten by society, had long gotten used to living alone. She didn't expect anything more than to survive the day, hour by hour, minute by minute. As Nathan walked closer, she simply looked up at him with a calm expression. She didn't ask his name, didn't wonder about his past, she just silently invited him to sit beside her. A simple gesture, but one that carried unconditional kindness. She offered him half of her bread, the only food she had. It wasn't charity, but a sharing from a person with a sincere heart. "I have some bread, you can have it," Emily said, her voice gentle but firm. Nathan stared at her for a long moment, his eyes showing a trace of surprise, but then he smiled and accepted. There was no show, no distance. Just a man and a girl sharing a quiet moment in life. They sat in silence for a while, only the sound of rain and distant traffic filling the air. Gradually, their conversation began, but this time, it wasn't the talk of the wealthy or the successful. It was the conversation of real people. Nathan spoke first, his voice warm, though his eyes still couldn't hide the sadness. "Why give so selflessly?" he asked. Emily looked at him and replied softly, but with great depth, "Because I have nothing left to lose, only faith to give." Her answer made Nathan think deeply. Throughout his life, he had everything: money, power, fame. But there was something missing, something truly important. Emily, this young girl, had what he could never buy, an open heart that knew how to love and share. They continued talking about life, the losses each of them had endured. Emily shared her past, the loss of her family, and the days of wandering with no place to call home. Nathan, in turn, spoke of the lonely years of wealth, surrounded by people who only cared about their own interests, with nothing but shallow relationships. They both realized one thing, that life isn't just about money, it's also about love and sacrifice. The conversation continued until a special moment arrived. Nathan could no longer hold back his emotions. The tears flowed uncontrollably. This was the first time in many years that he cried, not because of any loss from the past, but because of the deep emotion stirred by Emily's heart. The tears weren't just for the poor girl sitting before him, but because he realized that throughout his life, he had been so focused on money and success that he had forgotten the true value of life. Emily wasn't rich, but she had something he had lost: compassion and faith in people. Nathan looked at Emily, and for the first time in so long, he felt the sincerity in his own heart. "Thank you for opening my eyes," he whispered, his voice choking with emotion. After their long conversation, Nathan felt he had to do something for Emily. He invited her to a fancy restaurant, hoping at least to offer her a decent meal so she wouldn't have to live in poverty anymore. But Emily, though she knew it was a kind invitation, gently declined. "I don't need luxury. I just need someone to believe that I can get better," she said. Her words were like a small light in the dark night to Nathan. She didn't need money or wealth. What she needed was belief and love. Those words made Nathan even more admiring of her and regretful for what he had missed in his own life, so Nathan decided not to invite Emily to the fancy restaurant. Instead, he took her to a modest hotel, simply so she could have a warm shower and rest for one night. For Emily, it was the first time in many years that she slept in a clean bed, in a warm room, not having to worry about where she would stay the night. As she entered the room, Emily hesitated, but Nathan just smiled and told her to make herself comfortable. "You need rest," he said. Emily thanked him, her eyes filled with emotion. It was the first time in many years that she felt she wasn't alone, that she didn't have to face loneliness and scarcity. She realized that in life, sometimes the greatest gifts aren't material, they are the simple acts of kindness, the moments of genuine care. After the emotional meeting with Emily, Nathan felt a profound shift in his perspective. He no longer saw himself as just a billionaire with lavish possessions and power in his hands. Instead, he began to realize that the true value of life wasn't the wealth he'd accumulated over the years, but the ability to give and invest in people. So, one beautiful morning, Nathan invited Emily to a small coffee shop in the heart of Manhattan. She still dressed simply, her eyes betraying a hint of surprise as she took in her surroundings. But instead of a lavish meeting, Nathan offered her a simple black coffee, a gesture that was modest yet deeply meaningful. "Emily, I want to help you," Nathan began, his voice calm and firm. "But not with cash. I want to invest in you, in your potential. You can have everything you've dreamed of, but I don't want to just give you a handout. I want to help you build a sustainable future." Emily's eyes began to shine as she heard this. This wasn't a hasty promise or a temporary fix. This was a commitment to changing her life. Nathan didn't want her to just survive, he wanted to give her a real chance to thrive. "I want you to go back to school," he continued. "Study social work, the field you've always dreamed of. I'll cover your tuition, but you have to work hard and never give up." With Nathan's help and a special scholarship fund, Emily began a new chapter in her life. She no longer had to worry about finding temporary jobs or not having enough food to eat. Instead, she entered a whole new world of learning. Her classes in social work, the studies of human psychology, and how to help those in need opened up a world she had never dared to dream of. Emily worked hard, not only because she wanted to fulfill a personal dream, but because she wanted to help people like her, those who had been abandoned, forgotten by society, though sometimes she still felt lonely and insecure as she looked at her classmates, who had more stable lives. Emily never gave up. She constantly reminded herself that she had an opportunity that not everyone was lucky enough to get. Every morning, as she woke up, her heart was filled with determination. Emily knew that what Nathan had given her was not an easy opportunity, but a gift to be treasured and turned into action. And she worked tirelessly, striving to become a social worker that her community could be proud of. Not only concerned about her own future, Emily also thought of Mr. Harold, the companion who had stood by her during her hardest days. After receiving Nathan's support, the first thing she did wasn't to improve her own life, but to help Mr. Harold find a stable place to live. Emily asked Nathan, not with a casual request, but with a sincere offer, "I want Mr. Harold to have a home, a place where he can live peacefully, without worrying about sleeping on the streets anymore." Nathan was deeply moved by Emily's heart. He nodded and immediately directed his team to find a house for Mr. Harold. This wasn't just simple help, it was an act that spoke volumes about sharing and loving others. When Mr. Harold received the key to his new home, he could hardly believe his eyes. He was choked up with happiness and deep gratitude. "Emily, you're an angel," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. Emily simply smiled, needing no words in response. She knew that this small change would bring him a better life, and that was all she ever wanted. As the story of Emily and her acts of kindness spread, people couldn't stop talking about her. Articles, videos, and stories on social media all spoke about the Angel of Brooklyn, or the $1 million heart that doesn't need money. People everywhere, from the poor to the rich, were moved by her story. The remarkable thing was, Emily wasn't doing these things to seek attention or glory. She simply lived with her heart and tried to help those in need. And though her actions couldn't be measured in money, their impact spread far more powerfully than anything material. The story of this young girl became an inspiration to millions, young and old alike, who felt warmth and change in their hearts when thinking of her story. As Emily's story spread, she began to be invited to speak at conferences, to give inspirational talks at schools and community organizations. Having experienced her own hardships, Emily found it easy to share her story with others. She didn't just talk about what had happened, but emphasized that kindness and sacrifice could change our own lives and those around us. Emily became a motivational speaker, not because she had special skills or extraordinary success, but because she had lived true to deep humanitarian values. She told all the young people, kindness is the greatest gift we can give, and sometimes, that's the very thing that will change the world. With all these changes, Nathan felt like a new person. He realized that although he had everything money could buy, he had never truly felt happiness. Happiness didn't come from owning luxurious things, it came from being able to do something meaningful, from helping those around him, and from living true to his heart. Nathan was no longer a lonely billionaire, but a man who had found the true value of life. Each day, he felt more empowered, not from wealth or fame, but from the small, genuine actions he had taken. And he realized that this was the most valuable gift he could ever receive. A year had passed since Emily met Nathan and received help she never dared to dream of. Her journey in education had been anything but easy. But it was those very challenges that helped her grow stronger than ever before. Emily graduated with honors in social work, not only because of her sharp intellect but because she understood the pain and despair that homeless individuals faced. She never forgot the months she spent living in the park, scavenging for plastic bottles, or the long nights spent without a place to sleep. Those experiences drove her to want to create a truly safe space, not just for herself but for all those who, like her, had endured hardship, and then, a dream began to take shape. She opened a homeless support center called The Unlucky Ticket, named after the special story of her life, the lottery ticket she had given to Mr. Harold. Emily didn't just want to offer shelter and food, she wanted to create a space where people could regain their hope, where they could dream of a brighter future. The center wasn't just about free meals or a place to rest, it was about offering new opportunities, vocational training, psychological counseling, and the hope of transforming lives. The opening of The Unlucky Ticket was a special event. At the center's grounds, you could feel the warmth and hope filling the air. Hundreds of people were present, not just those receiving help from the center, but also individuals who had once been homeless themselves, now living stable lives, thanks to Emily's support. They came to share their stories and thank the person who had changed their lives. Emily stood on stage, looking at the familiar faces she had encountered during her toughest days, and now, they had jobs, homes, and most importantly, hope for the future. The ceremony was filled with emotion as those who had received help from the center came back to thank Emily and Nathan. She smiled softly, her eyes sparkling with joy as she saw these people, once lost, now found their own paths. The event wasn't just a celebration of achievements, but a testament to the change that can happen when people truly trust one another and dare to offer each other a chance. At the grand ceremony, Nathan was present, but he didn't want to step onto the stage. He stood at the back, in the shadows, where no one would notice him. Watching Emily on stage, he felt a rush of pride. He didn't need recognition or glory. For Nathan, what he did wasn't about building his reputation, but about helping someone he knew could change the world. The image of Emily standing on stage, bathed in light, overwhelmed him with emotion. What he had done, what he had helped her achieve, didn't just change Emily's life, it sparked a wave of change for those around her. Nathan smiled, his eyes filled with joy as he looked at Emily, the girl he had met in the rain, now standing strong before a crowd, confident and powerful. No need for grand speeches or praise from others, Nathan knew that she already had everything she needed: perseverance, self-belief, and an open heart. When it was her turn to speak, Emily stood before the crowd, microphone in hand, eyes shining brightly as she looked out at the audience. She felt like a bird that had flown far, free and strong. Her story was not just any story, it was the story of rising from the depths, of finding light even in the darkest times. She began recounting her difficult days of homelessness, when all she had was a notebook and dreams that seemed too far away. But then she spoke of Mr. Harold, of the lottery ticket she had given him, and how that simple yet meaningful act had changed her life. Her story wasn't just about giving, it was about receiving, about trusting in the potential of every individual. As she finished her speech, Emily smiled warmly and said the final words: "The ticket didn't win money, but it won a heart." Her words echoed as a reminder to everyone that, no matter how tough life is, as long as we have kindness and compassion, we will always find reward, not in money, but in love and trust. And it is that love, that unconditional help, which gives us priceless value. During the ceremony, Emily handed out symbolic lottery tickets to the children as a small but meaningful gift. She didn't want them to only see life through the lens of what they lacked, she wanted them to understand that everyone, no matter their circumstances, has inherent value. My story isn't about a lucky lottery ticket, but about how everyone can find an opportunity, even if fate hasn't yet called their name, she said. Each ticket she handed out was a message, a reminder to the children that even if they're poor, even if they have nothing in hand, they can still have a bright future if they strive and keep believing in themselves. When the children received their tickets, their eyes lit up, their hands trembling as they held their gift, but not because of its material value. It was because of the message from Emily: always believe that you can change your life, no matter how harsh the circumstances may be. Her words were a source of motivation, a light shining in their hearts, helping them realize they, too, could be the ones to change the world. After the grand opening, Emily and Nathan sat together on the steps of the center, watching people come and go, those who had begun to find new hope in their lives. Without needing to say anything, they simply sat side by side, feeling the peace and happiness in that moment. The crowd passed by, both old and new faces, each with their own story, but all shared one thing: hope. Emily and Nathan looked at each other, no words needed. They understood that this journey had only just begun. But with what they had already done, they had opened a door to new opportunities, for themselves and for those around them. In the midst of this busy, noisy city, they had found a small, warm corner, where love and kindness were never forgotten. Each of us has our own unique story, special journeys, and life-changing moments that we can never forget. Emily's story, from being a homeless girl to founding a center to support the poor, is not only a personal journey but also a testament to the power of perseverance, love, and hope. Her tireless efforts have transformed not only her life but also the lives of thousands of others. And this story, with all its inspiration, hope, and transformation, is just one of many stories that can spread the power of love and sharing within the community. In a world full of challenges and hardships, Emily's story is a reminder that, no matter where we start, we all have the ability to create positive change, even through small, meaningful actions. The "Ticket That Didn't Win" Center is not just a place that provides shelter and meals but a symbol of faith and hope. As Emily has proven, when we are willing to share love and believe in others' potential, we can change the world. Emily's story has touched the hearts of thousands, and now, it's our turn. Join us in this journey of creating positive changes and spreading the values of love to those who need it most. If you believe that everyone deserves a second chance, a chance to change their life, join the Heart Glow community, where inspiring stories like this are shared, spread, and grow stronger. Act today for a better world, where compassion and sharing light our every step. Don't forget to follow Heart Glow to share inspiring stories, and if you feel a strong belief in changing lives, contribute, join, and be a part of this wonderful cause.